Okay, welcome back. We are still doing Spirit Work 101. I hope I published these in the right order. One of them I'm saying we're still doing it. One of them is the last one. But I am making this video specifically because somebody requested it and has been so kind and patient in me not putting it up yet. And this is the Goddesses and Serpents, or the Dark Goddesses and Serpents video. And again, this is going to be another quick one, kind of like supplementary to this bundle that I'm putting out right now before we move into sitting with a couple individual spirits. But I'm excited nonetheless, and it's something close to my heart. So dark goddesses, when I say dark goddesses, I'm talking about goddesses that people have vilified or demonized over the years. I'm talking about goddesses that people run from, even that women maybe have run from over time because they didn't want to be like that. I'm looking at like the whole woman. So not just the goddesses, but the image and energy of a woman, or a whole feminine person who is able to bring all of themselves without shame to their daily expression. And through that, kind of receive or create whatever it is they'd like to receive or create. One of my favorite examples is Lilith, right? Lilith was the first, in my opinion, the first woman. She was Adam's first wife. She wasn't made from his rib, but from dust or dirt or clay or whatever, like he was. And Lilith is, let me just continue the story. So she was made, from the same dirt that he was, and she didn't want to lie beneath Adam. She wanted to be on top, or be even, basically. She's like, I'm not gonna be underneath you all the time. What the fuck is this? And he was like, God, she's too assertive for me. And God was like, hey, Lilith, come on. And Lilith was like, no, I don't think so. And Lilith said she spoke the ineffable name of God, and whoop, dipped out of there. I forget where she goes, but God sends 3 angels after her to bring her back. And she's like, no, 'twill not go back. I don't want to lay underneath that dusty man. Okay, God made me. I know God's name. Why do I have to do this? And they're like, you need to come back. And so she said no. She said she'll have babies and she will steal babies. And I'm very much chopping this story up. I really want you guys to go look it up yourself, and also I'm forgetting a little piece. But anyway, so she tells the angels no, but she says that whoever writes or speaks their names, the names of these 3 angels, Lilith will not harm their baby. So she becomes known for basically being the mother of demons, either with Samael or Lucifer or another consort, as the mother of demons. And she has 100 babies a day, or God kills 100 of her babies a day. And she also will try to kill human offspring, unless they're protected by these angels' names. However, sometimes you'll see Lilith's name on amulets for protection also. But over time, that view of Lilith has changed, partially from, her being included in art as very seductive and beautiful, partially because she became popular during, women's liberation. People looking at the story again and being like, well, hey, come on now, why is, so much shit blamed on her just because she didn't want to be underneath a guy? And then you see that, when you put that revisitation of the story combined with being oh, she's also known for protection. She's also fiercely protective. Lilith was also known possibly as a handmaiden of Inanna. Lilith, she's more than just a demon-snatching baby. But that's what a lot of people would put that energy on. But Lilith is great for independence, for transformation, for self-reflection, for growing up. That's the goddess I've worked with more than any other goddess in my life. And she's the one that I would say helped me to trust God as a whole. That doesn't mean it'll work that way for everybody, but it's definitely how it went down for me. because she made me look at myself. She allowed me to do all whatever I was doing, but I looked at myself. I dealt with the consequences. I chose to be accountable. And so that's the kind of growth that comes with dark goddesses. Accountability, ownership of yourself, good, bad, otherwise. So that's my take on Lilith. Lilith can appear to you, or appear, as a stunning woman, as a young woman, as an old woman. I usually see her with red, like wild, curly red hair. She's incredibly fierce. One of her associations is like the owl. She's known as the night owl. So even with that, owls are predatory. They're wise. Pardon me. Lilith has also been possibly syncretized to the serpent in the Garden of Eden. So here is one of the places that we see serpents as being cunning. Serpents have, a lot of dual, or not dual, but I would say complex energy around them, just like dark goddesses do. And so with the Lilith idea, serpents are now, being mixed with sexuality, with cunning, with subversiveness, with trickery. But if you think about it, eating from that tree of knowledge or whatever, now you're also getting illumination, transformation, doors are opening, the old you is gone, death and rebirth. So we see that there. So with Lilith, we also get the transformation too. And I think when you have the owl present as part of the symbolism, there's this ability to recognize things in the darkness. It's something about being instinctual, and that's what often the dark goddess is. That's what speaks to us, the instinct of her, the wild feral that hasn't been tamed. And oftentimes women were vilified because we have that naturally. You know what I mean? That link to being able to give birth, that womb, that's untamable. You can never all the way figure out this cycle, like the menstrual cycle. And that's not to say that folks who do not have wombs are not women and don't have that mystical tie. I'm just thinking about over time, like specifically biologically, that's something that has upset people, women, and our energies and things. But anyway, I don't even really consider myself fully a woman. I feel very non-either or both. But anyway, that womb tie, that birth-giving tie, that wildness, that's something that the patriarchy and scared, fragile masculinity wanted to demonize because they wanted it to seem unnatural. They wanted feelings to seem unnatural. Think about fucking just England over the years. Think about how uptight we as a society are, like in America, about, sexuality, about people being married, about so many things. Anyway, I digress. Dark goddesses have to do with death, sex, transformation. A lot of things that people are afraid to look at. Accountability, growth, etc. So, serpents also get tied into that. So we have Lilith, we have the serpent in Eden. There we get that story. Mind you, Eve, even though she really didn't do shit but eat an apple, also gets blamed for, original sin. And we don't consider Eve really a goddess usually, and especially not a dark goddess. But she gets blamed for original sin out of curiosity. And for years, people act like following any impulse of curiosity is against God, is blasphemous somehow. And therefore, pursuing a personal relationship with God through your own prayer, through your own education, has been considered blasphemous because it's against the church. So keep in mind that putting down the goddess, putting down the sacred feminine, putting down natural parts of life, that's really what the people that are afraid or, that want false power, that's what they want. They want to keep down the natural, mystical flow of life. Because when we allow the mystical in, we allow so much more to happen. And we as a whole group can grow so much more. So, anyway. Other goddesses that you might consider a dark goddess. Kali Ma. So, Kali Ma, like, her imagery is very strong. You regularly see her with, like, one foot like on an enemy and her arms raised and this like necklace of skulls and maybe like more skulls around her waist and her tongue out, like arms waving. She is absolutely fierce. But this is another goddess who's known as a mother goddess, like as a protecting, nurturing, fierce goddess. Another one who will show you yourself, who will show you accountability, who will bring you through like the worst lessons. And I think people who have been through a lot or who go through intense, heavy things, understand this kind of energy well. Like Scorpio, Pluto, like very strong rebirth occult energy to me. Like, yeah, it's just intense. It's intense. To me, Kali Ma is intense transformation. And like, I don't practice Hinduism, but I have worked with Kali Ma. Like, in my experience and from talking to others, she will work with you if she feels like you're supposed to work together, and it will be a lot. But just the image of a goddess surrounded by skulls, the image of a goddess dancing, enjoying in ecstasy what she's doing, which was killing, is not something that most people for a long time, I don't want to say liked even, because like a whole lot of this is because of colonization. Like a whole lot of this is like white men and women actively like erasing, putting down, vilifying religions that belonged to people of color because they were afraid and had no mystical relationship with God themselves. So I can't understate that. Or I cannot overstate that, rather. But anyway, so when I say it's not something people liked, it's not what people have thought was ladylike. A lot of dark goddesses are not the modern idea of ladylike, or the contemporary idea of that. But there's nothing wrong with blood and gore. There's nothing to be afraid of with death either. And that's the thing. Kali Ma looks scary. Dark goddesses sometimes look scary. They're not usually depicted to us or told to us as being beautiful, as being alluring, as being friendly or warm. They're just terrifying and bloodthirsty. And if they are beautiful, it's a trick. They're not allowed to be beautiful and warm and have that as a facet of themselves. And that's a lot like how women today, are looked at still. You have to fit into a box. If you're a mom, you're a mom. If you are sexual in any way, even if it's not, anywhere near your children or doing anything inappropriate, now you are inappropriate because you're a mom. You can only be a mom. So dark goddesses, to me, remind us that women and that femmes and that people in general are whole. We're not just one thing. I'm not just, a girlfriend. I'm not just a student. I'm not just a daughter. I am so much more. And my expression does not have to reflect anybody else's comfort with what they think I should be looking like because of what they are comfortable with for themselves. And what a lot of people are comfortable with is the status quo and not making waves. And they're fucking wrong. Like, I get it. We all are working through pain. We're all working through conditioning. But the folks that lash out, judge, etc., because they are coming from a place of fear are wrong. They are wrong. And if you have been that person, you're wrong. I have been that person. I was wrong. So, anyway, you can be more than just one thing. And dark goddesses show us that. Medusa, you know what I mean? Medusa was changed into a Gorgon for self-protection so that her being assaulted never happened again. And Medusa is often remembered as the motherfucking villain because she was a Gorgon. But guess what? Had a man never touched her, it would not have been a problem, especially not assaulted her in the temple. So not only are we seeing the, literal assault of a woman, of a goddess, of, a priestess, but we're seeing the assault on the feminine and the feminine responding being vilified. And the masculine's always allowed to respond. It's always allowed to respond. But women and femme people are expected to respond within what's allowed as opposed to always being allowed to respond. Not really the same energy. So Medusa gets labeled as a villain, as like a murderous monster. But she was really just protecting herself from an assault that should not have come through. So when we see dark goddesses, we see also women protecting themselves, standing up for themselves. honoring their voices, their desires, their choices in the matter of life. Who else am I thinking of? One more goddess. Oh, Sekhmet. I talk about Sekhmet a lot. Sekhmet is a phenomenal goddess. I don't know that a lot of, people see her specifically as a dark goddess, but you know, she's known for having a couple aspects, as well as being related to Hathor, the super sweet, sensual, like nurturing mother goddess, right? But Sekhmet is known as the lion-headed personification of like Ra's righteousness and rage, and she is a solar goddess, a goddess of truth, and like she's known for just annihilating, like for days at a time in a bloodfest, just annihilating people. And she didn't calm down until they tricked her with beer and she drank it up and passed out. This is talking about acknowledging your rage. So, I mean, you know, the myth is obviously more than that, but at this point, as we're looking at dark goddesses, we're talking about acknowledging our rage, acknowledging and expressing what we're feeling. And that doesn't necessarily mean go destroy cities for 3 days, because we are not quite that vast. But to purify. You could liken rage to fire and purification. So some of these goddesses, of course, have to do with purification. Sekhmet was down there cleaning up the mess of folks that wasn't listening to Ra. Is that not divine purification? Is that not divine fire? So women and femmes and goddesses have absolutely the capacity to be all of these things, to be everything. And that's really what I see dark goddesses as. And I know so many goddesses embody the whole. But to me, dark goddesses, the one that society has tried to make less accessible, less inviting, has made them more scary because of their own fears. Those are the ones that I really turn to and find transformation in. Hecate, Hel, Persephone, all goddesses that I would consider dark goddesses, absolutely. Isis and Inanna. I consider Isis and Inanna like just whole goddesses. But they both have initiatory paths. They both have to do with the underworld. Chthonic deities in general usually get lumped in with dark gods and goddesses because they have to do with what humans really can't see, what scares us. It's just that underworld energy. So there's that. Death and rebirth, you know, they take place there as well. It's where the riches of the earth are. There's just so much unknown there. And the unknown scares people. So yeah, dark goddesses tend to be the goddesses that represent death and transformation and pursue their sexual interests and are not beholden to anyone. They fight, they fuck, they yell. They are whole beings, and they're unapologetic about it.